Our next speaker is one of the most inspiring sports personalities across the world, and in conversation with him is one of India's most loved sports people. Ladies and gentlemen, Vijay Amritraj, a former tennis player, a sports commentator, and an actor from India. He is the first Indian to turn fully professional in sport and is often considered amongst the greatest in the history of Indian sport. He was awarded with the Padma Shri, India's fourth highest civilian honor, in 1983. May I please request Mr. Amritraj to kindly join us on stage. Good evening, sir, and a very warm welcome. Before I use the vocabulary to invite our next speaker on stage in conversation with Mr. Amritraj, let's look at an audio visual that describes his grand personality.
Andre Agassi was born on the 29th of April 1970 in Las Vegas in the United States of America. His talent was noticed fairly early by his father.
My father was set on me playing professional tennis, and I didn't really have a choice. I needed to find my reason for what it is I was doing, and I did.
Andre held the world #1 ranking while winning 8 Grand Slam titles, an Olympic gold medal in 1996, and a total of 60 single titles during his professional career. In 2001, he married former world #1 tennis champion Steffi Graf, with whom he has 2 children. Andre retired from professional tennis in 2006.
You have pulled for me on the court and also in life, and I will take you and the memory of you with me. Thank you.
But he continued to play in charity tournaments. Andre is also involved in many philanthropic activities, and he has created Andre Agassi Charitable Foundation, Andre Agassi Foundation for Education, and Early Neuroscience Foundation.
For the last 20 years at the Agassi Foundation for Education, our mission has been to provide high-quality childhood education. I believe technology can play a key role to this objective, and that's why I and the Agassi Foundation for Education have chosen to partner with Square Panda. I would never ask anyone to get involved in something I didn't believe in. Square Panda is unique and has the potential of creating generations of confident readers. With education, there is hope. Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, our next speaker, Andre Agassi. A former world #1 player, is the only male player ever to win all 4 Grand Slam titles and an Olympic gold medal in July 2011. He was inducted into the International Tennis Hall of Fame. At the age of 24, he created the Andre Agassi Foundation for Education. Over 17 years, the foundation has honed its mission to focus on transforming public education. Each year, the foundation's primary fundraising vehicle, the Grand Slam for Children, brings together international stars to raise awareness and money. Agassi poured his energies into charities and is also cited as the most charitable athlete of his generation. Thank you for that. In November 2009, he released his autobiography, Open, which reached to be the #1 New York Times bestseller. Ladies and gentlemen, I leave the center stage and the spotlight to Mr. Amritraj and Mr. Agassi. Ladies and gentlemen.
So, Andre,
Quite the welcome.
welcome to India.
It's great to be back.
Doesn't he look like he's ready to play 5 sets right now?
You know how you stay humble as you marry somebody that beats you at everything. And my wife shows me every day what it's like to be in shape. I'm far from it, so.
Well, I'm glad you're here. Let me start off by saying we had a lovely dinner last night. What did you think of the incredible Malabar fish curry that you had from Cochin?
I tell you, I hate to see what kind of shape I'd be in if I stayed here too long. Let me put it that way. It was highly enjoyable and very much on par with my company, Vijay. It was great to be with you again last night and have a wonderful time together.
It was great fun. Well, we're going to start talking about tennis, obviously, because his career has been quite remarkable. He's only one of 8 players to have won a career slam. A career slam. He's also one of 2 players, male players, to have won a golden slam, which means he also put the Olympic gold in there. So it's very special for us to have you here in India. But more than anything else, your career has been an incredible inspiration to tennis players of all generations. So if you look back at your early life and how you got into it, what would you say would be the highlight of it?
Well, of my career, you mean, or of my
Yes.
whole journey? Yeah, you know, I think the highlight of my career was probably in the journey itself. You know, unlike Vijay, who maybe many of you know, he started off with a great passion as tennis really added to his life from a medical perspective as a young boy, and he grew to love the game for what it did for him personally, and he just happened to be really great at it at the same time. Me, on the other hand, I was forced into it. It was never my choice to play, being the youngest of 4 children. My father, who came from Iran, didn't speak a word of English and saw tennis as the fastest road to the American dream. And the hopes fell on me as my older siblings weren't shown the promise. And I think that pressure and the realization of what tennis was doing in the relationships in my home between my siblings and my father created a great deal of resentment, quite frankly, and a great deal of pressure. And at an early age, not having that choice, getting sent away from home, I misdirected so much of that resentment towards the game and found myself, even though I happened to be very good at it, very disconnected with it. And along with that came a great deal of resentment, rebellion, and quite honestly, I happened to be good at a sport that I just recognized I hated. And I spent my life trying to succeed, thinking that was the answer, which took me to #1 in the world, to find myself probably more empty at that stage of my life than I ever was, to fall to 140 in the world, never sort of hating tennis so much as I realized, what has this all been for? And then there was kind of this moment where I had a chance to have an epiphany, you know, and this epiphany was one that said, just because I didn't choose my life doesn't mean I can't take ownership of it. And I started to realize at 27 years old, at the lowest point, doing things to my body with self-destructing drugs and choices, waking up in a marriage I didn't want to be in. You know, I started to realize how many people really do choose their life, you know, and this was my epiphany, you know, and how many of us choose where we're born? How many of us can choose who our parents are, who our parents aren't, what our strengths, what our weaknesses are, but just because we don't have choice doesn't mean we can't find our reason and our purpose. And so I set about that journey to find my reason, and that's where education entered my life, as I saw children who really didn't have choice and what it meant not to have choice. I didn't have choice, and it meant me being #1 in the world at a sport, you know. These children don't have choice, and it means them not breaking the downward spiral in their own lives. And I saw a piece on 60 Minutes, KIP program, Knowledge is Power. It is a charter school operator. I saw these guys rolling up their sleeves and making systemic change in these children's lives. And that day, what seemed to be that day at least, I took out a $40 million mortgage to build my own charter school in the most economically challenged area of Las Vegas. And once I started to have my reason, and I started that journey back, I think I'm most proud of succeeding, failing, taking ownership, And then not just succeeding again, but actually enjoying and embracing the opportunity to use what was given to me as a platform to make such a difference in so many children's lives. So that's
Fantastic. Your first Wimbledon win, 92. 1992, long hair, flowing locks, blonde.
Geez, you make me sound good looking.
I mean, it was an amazing look. I remember covering your championship match on television, and I'm thinking to myself, how is this guy going to play with the way he looks? With that hair flying all over the place. And what was your feeling winning that first Grand Slam? Because grass at the time was not your favorite surface. So you won incredibly. Wimbledon was your first major victory.
It was, and I had lost 3 Grand Slam finals before then, 2 in Paris, the French Open, where I was favored, 1 US Open finals against Pete when he was just a teenager, and I was also favored. And Wimbledon taught me a lot because it was the first finals where I actually wasn't favored. I was playing Goran Ivanisevic, who really could have won Wimbledon a handful of times in his career, a big lefty, 6'5" server, and nobody expected me to win, including myself. So I kind of went out there and just said, I'm going to have to do something special today, you know. And I started to realize my other finals I played, I went out there to not lose. And as a result, that sort of passiveness gave me what I deserved as my opponent was trying to do something special to win. And when I went out there against Goran, it was a totally different mindset. I was more relaxed, believe it or not, because I felt like I had nothing to lose. I let my game fly, and I wasn't thinking about the finish line. I was thinking about self-preservation and survival every point. And before I knew it, I was at championship point. And when he missed that volley in the net, I fell to the grass. I can tell you what it smelled like. I could tell you what the sounds were. But if I had to pick one emotion, it was just relief. Because I was convinced I would be the greatest underachiever in the history of sports, you know, having so many chances. And it's sad to say it's a relief, but it was a relief. And I was let in on a dirty little secret that day, that winning doesn't really mean that much, because you got to go out there and prove it again. And so that kind of was part of the story of my life, as I had to figure out what and how am I going to define success for myself. And Wimbledon started the hard part of that lesson.
Well, that was the first of course, 8 Grand Slam singles titles that Andre won, but also stayed #1 in the world for more than 100 weeks as #1 in the world, which is quite a unique achievement to have in our sport. Okay, so just on a slightly lighter note, 1992 when he won Wimbledon, in those days, the women's champion would have to open the champion's dance with the men's champion. And so Andre Agassi won Wimbledon in 92, and Steffi Graf won the women's singles in 92. So I was really looking forward to this champions dinner to see Agassi dancing with Graf. And what happened?
I was pretty excited myself, quite frankly, but let's be clear, any male champion that won Wimbledon probably had the chance to dance with Steffi Graf, because she was always winning it on the women's side. So I still felt like I had a long ways to go, if you know what I'm saying. But by the way, if she leaves me, I get half of everything. So I just want to, which includes 7 women. So she's stuck with me. So, but yeah, we go to the Wimbledon ball, and I was so excited. And you have to go there in a tuxedo. You know how, snobby the English can be. With all their. I didn't have a tuxedo. I don't think I ever worn a tuxedo in my life. And you don't go out before the finals of Wimbledon and buy a tuxedo, because that's all you're doing is jinxing yourself. You know you're going to lose now because you just spent $1,000 on a tuxedo you're not going to be able to use. And So I panicked after the match and went to get the tuxedo and was looking forward to this dance and waiting for it until they announced that it's the first year in the history of the Wimbledon ball, based on how players have responded to it in the history of this tournament, that they're going to not have the male and female champions dance. And I'm thinking to myself, you sons of bitches. I mean, how many, you are all about tradition, and you're telling me moments before my moment that it's not going to happen. I said, that's it. I'm never winning this tournament again.
I gotta ask the follow-up question after that remarkable experience in '92, and that is, you won 8 Grand Slam singles, you won a gold medal, won the Davis Cup. It's incredible, you're the best player in the world, and then you go home and you're the second best player in your family.
Might be my greatest achievement ever, to be number 1 in the world and number 2 in my own home. That's not easy to pull off. I think, like, Fed would have to marry Nadal or something for that to happen. I don't know.
When you look back at your incredible tennis career and you say, yes, the first one was a relief, of the 8 that you won, which would you say was the most rewarding?
You know, we have 4 pillars in our sport, as most of you know, which are the 4 Grand Slams. And I found myself, after falling, I won my first 3 were, you know, Wimbledon, Australia, followed by the US Open, getting to number 1, falling to the bottom of my life, climbing myself back up, 97, 98, getting to a place where I was playing the French Open, getting to the finals of the French Open, having a chance to win the one that eluded me. Winning all 4 in our sport is really, it's really the hope and dream of so many past champions. And here I was, old enough to realize I'll probably never have a chance to do this again. And here I was coming back from such hopelessness at times in my life. And here I was playing the finals so nervous I couldn't even move. I was down 2 sets to love and in a hurry. And, you know, finding a way to come back and win that match felt like a microcosm. To win that tournament felt like a microcosm of my life. You know, it's really hard. You know, I was down 2 sets to love. We had a rain delay. I went into the locker room, and if you can picture a locker room with 128 guys, doubles players, clay up to people's knees, up to people's shoulders, dirty floors, and now you're on a Sunday on a rain delay in the finals, and there's 2 people in there. There's you and your opponent, and the place is sparkling clean, and you know, whatever you say echoes, and you can hear what the other one's thinking almost. And I remember my coach coming in and not saying anything, and he, you know, Brad Gilbert, he had this knack for talking a lot. I mean, never shutting up. And I had the patience to have him as a coach for 8 years. I loved the guy. He was endearing, but he did just talk too much. He just always did. And here we were in this quiet environment, and he's not saying a word, you know, my dreams in front of me. And I look up and I just say to him, really, Brad? Like, you're going to talk my ear off for 8 years, and right now you're going to choose to shut up and not say anything? And I just remember he never raised his voice to me our whole life, and he just slammed the locker door and just said, what do you want me to say to you, Andre? He goes, that this guy's better than you? If it's so complicated, here's a good idea. If the guy hits the ball over there, first suggestion, run and go get it. If you're unsure where to hit it, wherever he is, hit it to the other place. And he says, but please, you haven't done this, you haven't fought in this far to not go out on your terms. Just 1 point at a time, and stop trying to be perfect and control what you can. And I remember going out there and settling back into the match and hitting that place that athletes call a zone, which I never felt too often, and win the 3rd set, win the 4th set, get up 5-3 in the 5th set, have 3 championship points on his serve. He holds serve, and I had 90 seconds to think about serving out the greatest achievement I know I would ever be able to accomplish in the sport. That's the longest 90 seconds of your life. And, you know, when I got back to the basics of just control what you can and do what you do, and I got through that match, I just felt like that's when I knew I would never have another regret as far as inside those lines ever go again.
A remarkable career. I was there when you retired at the US Open. You had an emotional send-off, which I'm sure you remember like it was yesterday. And what was that feeling when you finally left the sport and you knew you were starting your life again?
Well, that's the thing. For those of you that have children, for those of you that don't, I mean, if you're going to be great at a sport, you're giving up a third of your life to not prepare for 2/3 of your life. That's really what it is. And so when you do something every day with that kind of intensity, and then one day to the next it comes to an end, I mean, the only comparison I can make is death. I mean, because you live and then you just don't know what's on the other side. And as an athlete, you don't know what's on the other side, you know, but when it was over with, the thing that stood out to me the most was it wasn't about the trophies and the success and the applause. It was about growing up in front of the world. It was about the world helping me grow up. It was about being connected to people. And I think that's the part that kind of struck me most profoundly in that moment. You know, tennis had given me a platform for the rest of my life. You know, it gave me a platform to raise $200 million of philanthropic money to build my school in the poorest neighborhood of my own backyard. Through that experience, it gave me the opportunity to figure out ways to scale that across the country by not waiting for philanthropy or the government, but going to the private sector, putting together a business model that allowed us to bridge ownership of facilities for best-in-class operators so they could expand their footprint, co-managing $1 billion fund that has built in the last 5 years 90+ schools, and about to, in next 5 years, 100 more. All the way to what we've talked about with Square Panda and figuring out how to expand globally the idea of being able to educate, teach, secondhand language learning, literacy individually to masses and masses of people by using technology. You know, this has been the pursuit of my entire life, and tennis gave me this platform, and I was saying goodbye to it. And I was saying goodbye to people, but on a tennis court, I impacted people for 2, 3, you know, if I played bad, maybe 4 or 5 hours. But after tennis, I felt like there was an opportunity to affect people for generations, and because of the game. So I was really saying goodbye to something that I was going to keep with me forever, you know, and to this day I still try to find ways to stay involved out of that gratefulness.
Well, it's quite a spectacular school that Andre has in Las Vegas, which is his first one, the first one that he built. And I was very fortunate to go and spend time with Andre and Steffi in that school in Las Vegas. A very, very special unit. I mean, you see these kids just having the biggest smile on their face. And to see that someone like Andre, who came out of our sport, to be able to create something like this was honestly one of the most special things I've ever seen. It was really very, very unique and very special. So Andre, as you get into this second stage of your life, you've already accomplished so much by way of philanthropy and the building of schools in the United States. What's the goal now to be able to take it overseas, to be able to continue with education for the underprivileged, to be able to bring technology into it, and all of the above?
Well, I think we need to have real innovative solutions as we grow as a people, you know, globally. I've been asked so many times, are you going to bring these schools other countries? I mean, to know how school systems work, and it was hard enough for me to figure it out in my own country where I kind of really grew up with it. But, you know, with that being said, I mean, I think technology can play a very interesting role. I mean, with my schools in the United States, the thing that started was the school that you're talking about, Vijay, my philanthropic school had 1,200 kids in it and 3,000 kids on the waiting list. So, you know, where I come from, the world that I played, that makes me twice the failure I am the success. There's more kids that need it than I'm providing for. So I need to figure out how to scale that. So figuring out how to scale that, we did. And then you see all these schools that you've built with all these great operators, and you start to realize what their biggest issues are. And so many of these issues in these inner cities is secondhand English language learning. So many issues in these cities is early childhood literacy. I mean, we spend the first few years of our life learning to read. We spend the rest of our life reading to learn. And those that don't know how to read fluently by the age of 3rd grade, 4th grade, which is a real reality, while other kids are reading and processing content, these other kids are reading and trying to understand what they're reading, you know? And so the trajectory of these lives go dramatically in different directions for the rest of their education. So in thinking about that disconnect, there has to be a way to use the neuroscience that we understand from Stanford, UCSF, on how the brain works. We know that we can read the way our brain fires, and it's like a body, it's like a muscle. Some of us are strong in one area, not strong in another area. And you can read this. The problem is we don't have a way to distribute it individually with real-time AI feedback. And so that's where Square Panda really came in 4 years ago when Andy Butler, the CEO, reached out to me, and I tested this in my schools and saw the difference that it was making in these children's lives, and was compelled to not just put my money behind it. I mean, I'm the largest investor in it, but to put my energy, my brand, everything, because I will give everything to not fail being able to reach more children. And because of the technology, we're in Beijing, we're in Silicon Valley, we're in Mumbai. And our team is expanding, and the reach that we have is global, and you're giving real feedback in real time for real affordable opportunities of kids that would never otherwise have it. Not to mention the teachers themselves, who now don't have to be specific experts in this area to deliver the quality of education that these children deserve. So my mission right now is quite simple. As you know, Vijay, playing tennis, we always work backwards from goals. I don't have to do that anymore. I get to dream forward to what I don't know. But the one thing I do know about what's ahead of me, going to affect more kids.
You know, education has always been the backbone of the Indian family. You know, every child is always looking to get the best education from the parents. Parents are looking the best for their children. And, you know, schools are bursting at the seams in this country. Education is what we stay focused on. As I said to you last night, you know, sport is something that comes along after 4 o'clock in the evening, and we play for fun and we enjoy it, though we're getting a lot more professional in the last 30 years. But I think education is very much the focus for an Indian family, an Indian child. You always want to send the boy or girl to the best schools possible. So I think when you look at education in India, the focus continues to be on the ones that don't have the opportunity to be educated. And I think we've had that problem here, both in education, in basic healthcare. All of that is something that needs to be addressed on a regular basis. And I really hope that with your knowledge and your partnership and all of that you bring to the table, that you're able to stay focused in India a bit more.
Well, we're working with some of these great companies, CSR programs, where they literally are helping us get into the rural children in India. So yes, I don't think the quality of your education should be defined by where you live. It shouldn't be defined by how much you have. You're a child, you have a future, you have hope, you have capabilities. You need the opportunity to go after your dreams because you're not better or worse, you're different. You have different strengths, you have different weaknesses, and they all need to be explored. It's a crime to our future to not have that happen.
Absolutely. Just to move on a little more from here and to talk about how your family has also helped and guided you through this, because obviously strength of family, both kids and wives and spouses, whatever, plays such a vital role in what you want to achieve.
Well, just the support I have to be here for, a week's time and to get to see some of this country and experience, building our business over here and opportunities over here to reach children takes a very supportive wife, or it takes a wife that wants you out of the house. I don't know sometimes, but but it takes a supportive wife. And I think having children, the thing that it really highlights to me, it's not so much that it inspires me to necessarily do more. It kind of reinforces what a crime it is for children not to have opportunity, because when it's your kids, it's real. When it's your kids, it hits home. And when your kids have these opportunities, you're grateful. We're only as happy as our saddest child. And when your saddest child is suffering because they don't have a future, when you have your own kids, it drives this point home even more. And you're also teaching them along the way to understand that empathy and awareness of context and perspective in the world is such an important ingredient to their own development and to their own perspectives and to their own ability to navigate and solve for issues that have more effect than just on themselves. And I think it's given me the tools, given us the tools as parents to remind our children what they need to value as they build their own lives. Just like so many of these, great companies that are so socially minded, in the success of what they do. I mean, you don't have to, they're not mutually exclusive, doing well and doing good. They actually can work together in a very profound way, and if we don't start really supporting those companies that understand their social responsibility, this is one important way to make a scalable, sustainable difference in the lives of so many.
So does this mean we're going to see you more in India after this visit?
I mean, for some people it's bad news, but yes. Hopefully it's good news for you.
Absolutely. We're going to be doing a lot of Indian dinners, so you start to look like me after a while. But on a lighter note, you can't talk to Andre about, are you a betting man? He lives in Las Vegas. So I can't ask him that question. But do you get to hit tennis balls with your hitting partner at home?
She's tough to play tennis with because, no, I'm serious. I don't know how many play tennis here, but what's the first thing you learn in tennis, right? Watch the ball. You try to play tennis with Steffi Graf, you can't watch the ball. You're just like, that's Steffi Graf. So she makes it difficult. And then plus she's actually moving her feet. And I'm going, what are you doing? We're old. We're not supposed to move our feet anymore. But she's still bouncing around and makes me feel like I...
Do you guys enjoy it?
Do we what?
Enjoy playing tennis?
We do a lot of charity tennis lessons, to raise money. And sometimes we get people on the other side of the court that are just so excited. Their enthusiasm brings out a joy. But we do enjoy it. It's just the next day we pay such a price physically that we always end up looking at each other and just saying, what were we thinking? So it seems to be getting less and less. But if I needed a hit, I always have somebody close.
Andre and Stephanie have a lovely family, a boy and a girl. They're grown up now. They're not children, small anymore. But any interest in sport for the kids?
Yeah, my son has been focused solely on baseball, America's version of cricket. And it wasn't easy to convince his mother that it's actually a great sport, even though it doesn't look like they're doing anything. there's a lot going on, and he works hard at it. He's shown a lot of promise. He's been gotten a full scholarship to college in ninth grade in high school. He's even showing some potentially higher possibilities. We're praying to God he just goes and gets his education, but he might have some other choices. My daughter is a hip-hop dancer, globally competitive. She did that for a lot of years, but she has a bit of my personality in her. She kind of just, from one day to the next, just said, you know what, Dad, this dancing thing, I'm not feeling like there's much of an end game in this. I mean, where am I going? Am I going to be teaching this? I don't want to. So I said, you know what, go ahead and be a 15-year-old girl and, care about what's important, but just whatever you tell me you care about, I want to see your days reflected. And so she dabbles in some athletic things. She's very artistic. And she's she's really good at being a socialite at school. She's 15 and seems like everybody loves her and she loves everybody and she's happy. So as long as my kids are at peace, I'm happy.
So a couple of questions on tennis today and where we are in the sport. There's a lot going on, as we discussed. Roger and Rafa, Djokovic, Andy Murray has stepped off the plate now, and same with the women. Serena Williams is perhaps at the tail end of her career, maybe, though she's still very competitive. Sharapova. How do you see men's tennis at this point with the way Roger and Rafa and Djokovic are still playing? What are they, won 15 of the last 18 Grand Slams or something? The numbers are astronomical. Have you seen rivalries since you and Pete had that amazing rivalry?
We had a rivalry to speak of, but let's just put this a little bit in context from a couple statistical standpoints. I mean, in 70-some years, there was 5 guys that won all 4 Grand Slams. And then 3 guys did it inside of 3 years. So we have a generation that is arguably arguably the greatest of all time. You have Roger, you have Novak, and you have Rafa. Each one of them has played each other at least 15 more times than I played Pete. I mean, you're talking about 27 to 24 match record head-to-head. You're talking about 28 to 26. You're talking about 25. You're talking about each person that's won a Grand Slam has had to arguably beat 2 of the greatest people to ever live just to win their one. And one of them has 20, and one of them has 15, and one of them has 17. I mean, so we're looking at one of the great generations in the history of tennis, and it's not done because Novak is 31, maybe going on 32 here soon, but his body's probably going on 25. I mean, he looks as good as ever. He has 2 more coming a year for the next few. I mean, he could easily catch them all. I mean, I don't believe in just numbers being the indicator. But if we're talking about just how stingy these people have been in winning these slams,
that's right.
It's actually unreasonable.
Yeah, but if you look at Novak, and obviously barring any health issues, you think he can pass Roger?
Absolutely can. Absolutely can. He's at 15 now. He won 2 last year. He's won 3 on the trot, right? He's had 2 years where he could have won all 4 of them. He's had 1 time when he's managed to hold all 4 of them. So if he goes and he wins Paris, he holds all 4 of them again. He has Paris. He didn't seem to have much of a problem in Wimbledon. I mean, all of a sudden you're talking about, can we have the first man to win all 4 in the same year? I mean, Roger could have done that 3 times if it wasn't for one guy named Nadal. So any one of these 3 that you look at, you have to respect each one for something that you can't even speculate. I mean, I stopped predicting Federer years ago because I was wrong so many times. But I learned from being dumb, and I stopped predicting these guys, and as I look at Novak, can he do it? I think he could surprise the world and do something maybe the game's never seen before.
Desire is a big issue as well, right? I mean, you want to stay that you want it. You want it so badly, as you know. And the work begins off court, off center court, and you really have to want it so much that you're willing to give everything else up for a period of time, especially when you won everything. It's hard to have that biting desire. Bjorn Borg left at 26 years of age.
Sure. No, listen, it's an individual sport, and so you don't have to have much go wrong to have a bad day. You know, a two-horse race, anything can happen. You know, it could be anything from your children getting older and not wanting to leave them because they're in school. It can be anywhere from waking up on the wrong side of the bed to health issues. I mean, a lot of things can go wrong. But the desire that these guys have is also unmatched, in my estimation. I mean, we watch some events where they play exhibitions, and when they see the other one on the other side of the court, I mean, the air gets pretty tense pretty quick. I mean, you know, and they both, they all want the right to argue that their standard of tennis is the best that's ever seen a tennis court, and I think they all have a claim to that, and I don't think it's going to stop until their bodies tell them you can't do this anymore. I don't think the desire is going to be the issue.
Well, listen, those of us who've obviously seen Pete and Andre play each other over those remarkable matches, I would beg to also question the quality of the tennis that they played, which was just completely out of this world against each other. Pete and Andre playing each other in the US Open and Australian and Wimbledon. So your quality of tennis was just, some of the matches I did on television, it was amazing. And it always looked so great because Pete had the serve and volley and you were so good with the return and attacking from the backcourt. You know, it made you feel like watching a match. It was like McEnroe play Borg at one point, you playing Pete. I think those are very special matches.
Well, if you think about it, you're not guaranteed rivalries in sports. And what does make a rivalry? Obviously, two guys that are trying to be the best, but then you have opposite personalities, you have opposite games. I mean, you still can make the argument that Federer and Nadal couldn't be more opposite, right? I mean, me and Pete, I think we both are very thankful we're opposite. You know, I mean, if you think about it, the way he lived his life, the way he played his tennis, his sort of easiness, how easy he made it look, the way I played a match and I treated it like a tapestry and every piece had its right place, and my emotional roller coaster, and I played from the baseline. You know, so these things aren't guaranteed in sports, and I think we've had the luxury of seeing it over a number of generations now.
I find the problem with men's tennis today is the fact that the three guys at the top of men's tennis are all really, really nice guys.
They sure act that way. I'm not going to be quick to believe that, though. You can't be nice and win all those slams and take it away from other people. That's very rude.
That's very, very true. So, I mean, I think we have just a minute or so left, but give me your perspective as we close up here. Give me your perspective on India before you came to India and once you've been to India. What would you say hits you like a ton of bricks? What opens your eyes? And what were your thoughts before you came here and now that you've seen it, a little bit of it?
Well, yeah, first of all, I watch a lot of National Geographic, so the experience of everything India has to offer outside its countryside is something that's always fascinated me. This is the fifth time I've been to India, and the first time I've been outside of Mumbai, because most of the time it's business-oriented, which takes place there. It's focused. I was warned about the sensory overload that can happen between the impoverished and the opulence in some cases, and how they coexist. And I don't think you're prepared for that. You know, I don't think you're prepared to see the commingling of lives that are fighting and lives that are living in extremes together. You know, so this was very hard at first. But then the second time I came and started to understand the culture and the people, and you know, you don't feel the begrudgment of the disparity like you do in America. There's a begrudgment of the disparity, and you know, I always like to say, you know, it's not the disparity of wealth. It's, if you think about it, it's the disparity of hope, right? We used to believe It really is. We used to, you know, and I can't speak profoundly about India because I respect you guys too much to try to put words to it. But for me and where I grew up, it's, you know, when you think that hard work, education, you can make something of your life, you do, and you care. But when you realize that even with hard work, even with education, you won't have the opportunity because the education isn't going to be what you need, hard work's not going to get you a better opportunity, you know, that leads to hopelessness. I mean, hopelessness leads to despair. Despair leads to desperate act. So for me, it's the disparity of hope in the human experience that we all have to address in a very localized way. And I'm proud to be in India in one small way of trying to bridge that gap.
Yeah. Well, we know now that this is not your last trip coming to India. You're going to be back. I wish you well in what you're doing. Obviously, it's going to help the entire world in not just your philanthropic effort, but with the kids of the next generation. I wish you'd bring your family and come visit my country and take a look at what we have to offer, because I don't think the hospitality can get any better in any other part of the world than we have in India.
No question. Thank you. Thank you all for having me and for being here. Thank you, Vijay.
So I want to say thank you to every one of you who've come from overseas, people who've come from different parts of the country. Thank you to Mr. Swami, thank you to Mr. Guha, thank you to the entire organization of this event to put this remarkable event for the first time in India. I'm always proud of these spectacular events that I can talk about internationally, that we continue to do such a remarkable job with the hospitality that we have to offer. To my dear friend Andre and his family, please come back and visit us. It's absolutely a delight to see you in my home country. Thank you so much.
Vijay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Andre, Vijay, I'm going to request you to kindly remain on stage, please. Ladies and gentlemen, before we invite our really special guests on stage, and we have a very special segment which we'd like you to be a part of. Please, if you don't mind, I'd like to just say something that quote actually you, and you said, don't ever cheat anybody out of their experience, whatever it might be. And I think this experience was nothing short of extraordinary. Ladies and gentlemen, Andre Agassi and Vijay Amritraj. Ladies and gentlemen, we have a very, very special moment now. The IAA India chapter has always worked to show that communication is a force for good. And this is an emotion that we hone every single day. So we together at IAA have decided to run an awareness campaign about diabetic retinopathy in association with All India Ophthalmology Association. A campaign that will help prevent blindness in hundreds and thousands of people. Entries were invited and were judged by an elite jury that was chaired by Raj Nair, Bobby Pawar, and Carlton De Silva. May I please request the chairman of the World Congress Steering Committee, Mr. Pradeep Guha, and the president of the All India Ophthalmology Association, Dr. S. Natarajan, to kindly join us on stage so we can felicitate our winners of the contest, please. Hi, Mr. Natarajan, thank you so much for joining us. Hi, is that from Joy Alucas? I'm kidding. And now, ladies and gentlemen, the winning team, Rohan Joseph and Vallabh Yolkar. I think it's Yolekar. They are the two young gentlemen who have created this winning campaign. Inviting you on stage. Hi, Rohan. Hi, Vallabh. Please join us center stage. Please accept the token of appreciation from truly wonderful souls who are doing so much good to the world, adding to brand dharma, living their lives and making it a part of their karma. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you. And before we ask you to leave, we're going to ask you to kindly take a look at the 1-minute video that these two young lads made. Yeah.
The world will forgive you, but will you forgive yourself? Diabetic blindness is preventable. If you're diabetic, you need a retina checkup to prevent vision loss.
Thank you so much, Rohan. Thank you so much, Vallabh. Thank you, Mr. Natarajan. Sir, may I please request you to kindly take your seat? Thank you. And now, ladies and gentlemen, I'd like to request Mr. Pradeep Guha to kindly felicitate Mr. Agassi and Mr. Amritraj. Everybody. Wow. That was beautiful. I think it's amazing to see how sport just binds us all with the emotion of being good. And yesterday when we were speaking to one of our speakers and we asked, what is the ratio of goodness one needs to have? I think, there you go. You learn it all. It's all about living your life and not cheating yourself from any experience that comes your way. Because it's truly each one of you in this room who goes out there and makes a difference into the world. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.